right, everyone, it looks like we are live on Twitter and YouTube. Welcome back to another episode of Hail Yes, a live edition of a Michigan football and basketball podcast by the Detroit Free Press. I'm Andrew Burkle, and of course, joined by our Michigan beat writer, Tony Garcia. And I think you worded it excellently in your post about our live show here, Tony. It's yet again the biggest week of Michigan basketball season. It feels like we've said that before, but I mean, as big as the Michigan State game was, I mean, a top 10 road matchup against Purdue on the road and a game against Duke this late in the season against a Duke team that's this good. I mean, it just keeps happening. We just keep getting bigger and bigger weeks.
Yeah, this is what happens when, the new college basketball rankings are going to come out momentarily. Michigan will be the number one team in the country. And then when you have the schedule makers who do their best to guesstimate who will be the best teams in the league, and you backload those schedules. And then I remember over the summer when Michigan announced it was playing Duke late in the season, I kind of wondered about that decision just because I figured Michigan would be in the Big Ten race. I didn't know they would have a 2-game lead at this point, but figured they would be certainly in the hunt. And you just wonder how that will... It can work both ways, right? Maybe it's a little bit of a reprieve. That's how Dusty May characterized it at his press conference this morning at Chrysler Center before Michigan heads down to West Lafayette later today. He said, just sort of a day, like a little step away from the grind of the Big Ten slate. And they're looking at that Duke matchup like an NCAA tournament game. And frankly, that would be a Final Four matchup because Duke is looking at one of the 1 seeds right now. Michigan is maybe a 2 seed, at least an Elite Eight, but probably it would be a Final Four or a national championship type matchup with Duke. And then Purdue was the preseason number 1, right? So you got the preseason number 1 against the current number 1. And then Michigan Duke is in KenPom is number 1 versus number 2 teams in the country. So it felt like it was a massive, massive week when Michigan played then top 5 Nebraska and then top 10 Michigan State in East Lansing. Michigan passed those tests, even on a day against Nebraska where it did not play its best at all. And so I think it's gonna need to play more of that brand it played in East Lansing for like about 30 minutes of the 40 minutes in East Lansing outside of when Michigan State made their push. It's going to need to do that both days against Purdue and Duke. And the Boilermakers are up first. Mackey is a snake pit. I've been there twice covering Michigan basketball teams, and they lost by, I think, 31 or 32 and 27. So they've been outscored by 59 points in 2 games at Mackey. I certainly don't expect that. But even last year, a really good Michigan team just got blitzed by Purdue, and it can happen quickly there. So Michigan's got to be ready.
I should say we're taking questions. I posted that on the YouTube page. We're taking questions. So if you guys, something comes to you, you want to talk about Purdue, you want to talk about Duke, or you want to take a look back at some of the games that happened last week, make sure you just post a quick comment. We'll answer your questions as we go here. But real quick, looking back, we didn't want to spend too much time on the games that happened, but it was still an eventful week that kind of, I feel like, raised the stakes even more coming into this week. Michigan gets the ultimate test in the first half and really halfway through the second half against Northwestern on the road. I thought I put the jinx on it with our podcast description. I was like, is Michigan basketball that team again from November? I was hyping them up in the podcast description. Next thing you know, by the time it posts, Michigan is already down to Northwestern by like 10 points. I'm like, what the heck just happened? So from that to suddenly winning by 10 points, or it was 12 points, against Northwestern, right? And then putting the smackdown on UCLA again in the second half after a close-ish first half on the scoreboard, at least. So it's another impressive week, particularly that UCLA win. But during that broadcast, Bill Raftery was like talking about how Dusty May he seemed really happy with the way Michigan rallied in that game at Northwestern, because you see it all the time. Look no further than the other team in the state. Michigan State gets caught against Minnesota, and they can't find a way to overcome it and win that game. And now they're sitting in the Big Ten standings with 4 losses. It catches up to you quick, right? Like, these things can happen fast, especially when you have games at Purdue, at Illinois, and versus Michigan State still on the schedule. So to find a way to win that game, as impressive as the UCLA win was, I think is probably the most notable thing from last week, right?
Yeah, I think you could definitely say so. I think it was number 1 of 2 that really come to my mind. They were facing a season-large 16-point deficit in that one with 14:22 to play in the second half. It was 58-42. It was really looking like, I still wasn't resigned to the fact like, oh, Michigan's lost this game, but I was like, they got to pick this up like right now. And then they sure did. A 45-17 finish down the stretch. LJ Kaysen developing as another weapon for this team, right? He scores a career high 18 points. He facilitates in the lane. Even dating back to last year, Dusty said LJ was someone who gave, and I think it holds true on this team. LJ gives them something that really nobody else does. Someone who can just at any time create off the bounce, can probe, can get to the lane and get a shot for himself when things are just sort of stuck in the mud. And that's what Michigan's team was for a while on that day in Evanston. And then, we all know how this offense can get rolling. And it was like basketball poetry for a while. It was buckets, just for what felt like a 10-minute stretch.
The funny thing is, I could say to you, which game are you talking about? Because that happened in both games. It literally happened in both games where they had stretches of 11 straight made shots, I believe, against Northwestern, and then 9 straight against UCLA. And while the boa constrictor defense is just tightening down on the team that they're playing, it's like the fact that they're repeatedly doing this, dating back to November. It's just what this team does, especially against inferior opponents.
No, we said it last week on the pod. Outside of the Penn State game and the Wisconsin game, which happened 4 days apart in the same week, Michigan's been essentially perfect outside of that. They have been on the scoreboard. They're 23-0 in the other 23 games that weren't that week, and they're 24-1 on the season. And there's just so many ways they can beat you, right? Are they going to beat you with their inside game? Are they going to have a good shooting day? If they're protecting the ball, then just at the tempo they play at, with how dominant their defense is, with how many possessions they get on offense, if they're not giving them away, they're just almost inevitable at this point. And then, that brings us to UCLA, right? Which I thought was just a fantastic adjustment. They got hammered on the boards in the first half. It was those offensive rebounds for second chance points that really kept UCLA in the game. Michigan was up 11 with, I think, 2:39 in that half. In that first half, felt like they were going to pull away. UCLA goes on a 10-1 run to close it. Tyler Bilodeau gets going a little bit. A couple offensive boards lead to second chances. That was really throughout the entire half. And then you look up and it's 40-38. And you never really felt like UCLA was going to win the game, but you also didn't think Michigan was going to win by 30, right? And so after a 45-17 close to the second half against Northwestern, Michigan hammers UCLA 46-18 over the entire half. 18 points allowed defensively in the second half. Michigan shot 78.3% on offense. 18 of 23. It was just, it was a clinic. It was surgical. It was a clinic. And again, there was no overwhelming performance, right? Nobody even scored 20. I think Yaxel had 17 and 8, and maybe we'll talk about Yaxel a little bit, sort of his name popping up in the headlines this weekend as we preview Purdue, but 17 and 8 for Yaxel. Morez, an efficient 15 points. Perfectly efficient, 6 of 6 from the field. You got Kaysen with 13.
I like the way Kaysen built on his last game too. He had the game at Northwestern, and he really, he gets a little bit. He's kind of like your prototypical shooting guard. Old school. You don't see him as much these days, but when he gets the ball, he is tunnel vision towards the basket. Like, oh, I'm getting this thing up. And sometimes that's valuable, man, especially on a team like this where, everybody, it's hard to find a role sometimes, like he could easily be getting a lot of his minutes taken by Trey McKinney the way he's playing, right? But no, he's carving out a nice little role for himself and showing that he can score in spurts. And that's, not what the other teams of the Big Ten want to see. That Michigan's adding another weapon, and we'll see if he can keep doing it this week will be a good test. But 2 games in a row like that was impressive.
Yeah, and really, he's the backup one for this team. Elliot Cadeau did not play the final 15 minutes and 15 seconds of that Northwestern game. LJ played the entire finish. And while he's not the same now, I know what you mean about the shooting guard. I see him as a combo guard, right? Like, he can handle the ball, but he's not, he's not a passer, in a natural way. Although he's had a couple nice, when he gets into the lane, he can throw that little pocket pass, that little bounce pass to either a Dye or Morez. He's kicked it out a time or two, but when he gets to the line, he's generally looking to do one thing, but it's just another weapon.
But he doesn't need to be, when he's out there, he doesn't need to be, if he's playing point guard, they still have Yaxel out there. They still have a Daimara who's probably the best 7'4" passer I've ever seen, right? He really is so good at passing at that height. And you have some of the other, just a generally good ball movement out there, that the flow of the offense. So it's not like, if you're playing point guard at Purdue or point guard at some of these old school teams where, Braden Smith has the ball. He's running. Every single thing is running through him. He doesn't have that pressure on him, right? So he can kind of just do his thing still.
No, exactly.
Anything else you want to say? I think we can kind of move on towards the week ahead here because we still have plenty we could discuss as far as what this team does, the matchup has.
Like you think about another thing about this team is just like the week before they called the Ohio State game the Roddy Gale game. They called the UCLA game the Adai Mara game. I'm sure in a couple weeks it'll be the Morris Johnson Jr. game when they go to Illinois. They really want to win these games. Of course, you want to win every game, but there's a focus on their teammates, their brother who has come from that school and what it means to them specifically. I mean, when Mara caught that revert, and it might have been from Case, and I can't quite remember who threw the lob, but when he caught that reverse jam for the alley-oop, he was like floating back down the court. I mean, it was technically a skip, but he looked like he was just like hovering above the court. Like you could just see what it meant to him. And he said all the right things about just another game and all of that.
He's doing one of these as he's like, running.
Exactly. It was not just another game. And so there's that. The way they finished against Northwestern, it's just more of what this team does, which is just find ways to win.
No doubt. Okay, let's look at the specific matchups here. Do you want to get the Yaxel conversation over with? You had an article this morning previewing Purdue. Yaxel, some comments were going viral on social media, expletive laced comments about how they're going to destroy Purdue. Give us a backstory there. And just, it's a classic, just bulletin board material type stuff that you just don't want to do. And I think Dusty largely put it to bed, right?
Yeah, he did. For one, I think it's worth noting, and that Dusty pointed it out, this was actually back from May. This video was taken in May, shortly after Yaxel committed to Michigan. He was in town. As Dusty said, he was at a 21 and up establishment. The conversation came up, and he was obviously very flamboyant and boisterous about the comments he made about Purdue. Now they are surfacing. And I mean, I think Dusty said a lot of the things, right? Like he called it a lesson and said it's one of the reasons that Yaxel wants to be here, right? Like you need to learn to be a pro and to be a better pro. You can't have moments like this. You got to know if you're in public. I mean, assume there is always a camera on you. Based on that video, it looks like it was pretty obvious. I mean, the camera is directly in front of him, but you can get caught up in the moment, right? Especially if you're indulging in things and you're in a comfortable setting and those sorts of things. And so he said is disappointing. He said Yaxel feels really badly about it. I mean, especially, the way he's perceived from the kids and in the community. He just, and frankly, and I've said it on this podcast before, and I stand by it separately from this video or even in light of this video. Yaxel is the most humble superstar that I've ever met. A lot of times you can feel, especially in the role that we serve as media, you can feel when guys are, and not everybody has to like meeting with us. It's not about that at all. But there are some people where it's like pulling teeth. But Yaxel is, he actually always has a smile on his face and is just in a good mood and ready to answer questions. Honestly, maybe this is an example of being a little too honest and a little too out there where a little more couth would have served him well. But it is what it is. I mean, Dusty said he feels bad. He's talked about it with Yaxel. Yaxel's talked about it with the team. They're all fine. There's not going to be any reprimand or any repercussions or anything. And then Dusty said another thing I thought was interesting. He's like, I can't imagine that Lawyer or TKR or Braden Smith or they are motivated by something that Yaxel said months ago at a 21 and up establishment, right? Like he's like those guys are killers. As far as bulletin board material, it's not going to help when we have to execute the pick and roll.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought that was good spin zone, but also like if for a fact if Lawyer or Braden Smith said that same thing in a video that went viral about Michigan, Dusty would be putting that on the metaphorical bulletin board as well. So I thought it was a well-played spin zone, and there is some truth to it because those guys, it's not like they're going to not play hard if they didn't have that, but like it's certainly, it's not something you want, right? Which is what he said. So, I don't know. I thought that was a good coach speak and a funny spin zone, but I would be a little surprised if it's not at least brought to the attention of the Purdue players. They didn't already see it themselves.
That's right. No, that's right. Both things can be true, right? Like they were going to play hard anyway. This certainly is going to light the fire even more. And I can tell you the paint crew, which is Purdue's student section, which is in my estimation, number 1 or number 2 in the Big Ten, right alongside Michigan State. And I'd put Illinois probably number 3 in that mix. They're going to be letting Yaxel have it. There's no doubt about that. And so Michigan's got one thing they've done a great job of this year is just coming out of the gates strong, right? Like it feels like they're up 10 points, 10 minutes into every game, right? And so there's going to be a little more hostility. It already was going to be a big game. That's not going to help matters. And so I think that's really the situation as it were. And now it's about the X's and O's that we're getting into.
Yeah, we'll tie a bow on it. I don't think it's going to determine the winner or loser of this game, but it might get mentioned on the broadcast. So it's our job on the podcast to prepare you for these games and stuff like that. So let's look at the actual basketball. I mean, this is really getting to be an awesome game. Purdue had a little bit of a lull there before they beat Nebraska last week. And then also, why am I drawing? Who did they just came off another big win over the weekend?
Iowa.
Yeah, they crushed Iowa at Iowa. So that's another good win against the team that we highlighted last week is like, hey, watch out for that game for Michigan at Iowa. They're not amazing, but that's a tough Big Ten game, and they made it look fairly easy. So we have the number 2 offense in the country in Purdue versus the number 1 Michigan defense. Michigan is the number 4 offense themselves. Purdue, number 19 defense. We could go on and on about the different categories and where these teams rank, but what's going to be the number 1 thing that you're watching in this game as far as matchups between Purdue and Michigan?
For me, there's a couple things, and it all happens on the interior. For one, it's about rebounding. Is Michigan going to get enough second chances if it's not having one of those good shooting nights? Michigan's offensive rebounding rate has actually really improved this year. They're now top 25 in the nation in offensive rebounding and at 24. Purdue is number 8 in defensive boards. And so those matchups between Trey Kaufman-Renn and Oscar Clough, who maybe we'll get into more, has been a really great addition for Purdue against Morez, Adai, and Yaxel. That's gonna go a long way in determining this one, in my estimation. And then also on the other side of the ball, Michigan is the number 2 team in the nation in 2-point shooting. Purdue's interior defense has been quite suspect this year. They're right dead in the middle of the pack of the country at 187. If Michigan is able to get some work done in the paint, and you expect they would, that would bode very well for Dusty May's team. I mean, but there's so many things that you can look at, right? Purdue is a really good 3-point shooting offense. They're 27th in the country. Michigan's number 7 in 3-point defense, right? So if Purdue goes, I'd say 9 of 27, that's probably about holding water, 33%. I don't think there's either team who would jump to sign up for it. But if they saw that was the number, they would both be like, all right, well, we still have a shot here, right? Like Michigan's not going to get shot out of the gym and Purdue's not going to shoot themselves out of it. However, if it's 11 of 25, then that's a major advantage Purdue. But if it's 7 of 26, then Michigan is in the driver's seat, right? So I mean, it's all in the margins. And which way does that tip as well?
Yeah, we've talked about this before. I mean, it's not that fun of analysis, but like a lot of times with the game, the way basketball is played these days, like we're talking about with the Michigan State game, I remember specifically, it's like, okay, is Jordan Scott or is LJ Kaysen going to hit more threes? Like that could literally be the difference between the game, and there's a million different things you can highlight, but a lot of times, especially when you're playing on the road in an environment like Purdue, I mean, could be the difference, right?
It's not bad analysis that day because 3-point shooting was the difference, right? Michigan was 8 of 21, which is their best 3-point shooting game of the month, and Michigan State was 4 of 23. Michigan has 12 more points from behind the arc. Michigan wins by 12. It's not that directly correlated, or correlation does not imply causation, but that had a lot to do with it, right?
And certainly something I'll be watching as well is how involved can Braden Smith get Adai Mara in the ball screens, particularly at the top of the key. I mean, he is like the pick and roll maestro, and just from there can pick apart all the defenses. Will they be able to get Mara to come up and hedge against some of those? And will they be able to get him to sit in the paint where he can monitor things a little bit more? That's going to be, and then obviously will Purdue go small to try to counter that, to try to get him so he has to be on the 5, but then you have to look at the rebounding. So there's a million different, I mean, to me, a lot of times, as great as Yaxel is, how teams are going to play Michigan comes down to Adai Mara and what are they going to be able to do with that? So that's definitely something I'll be watching.
Yeah. If I had a guess, and it's an educated guess, I think if and when Adai is caught in the pick and roll screening action, I mean, they just run exclusively drop coverage with him, right? Like he's not fighting through anything. He's not hedging things. They run drop coverage with him. I think they are going.
Drop
Michigan
coverage
is going
against
to do
Braden Smith. against Braden Smith, that's a dangerous game.
He's a 41.5% 3-point shooter. Absolutely.
And good in the mid-range.
Which is why I think if I'm Purdue, I'm going to be running my pick and rolls with Clough and not with Trey Kaufman-Renn. Because even though TKR is more of that pick and pop kind of guy, he's got some range. He's not shooting a ton this year, and not shooting very well.
He can handle the ball. He can handle the ball.
I mean, he's an 18% 3-point shooter this year, so it's not a great option. But Clough doesn't even shoot him, and so if he is in the mix, Michigan's going to have Merez out there, right? I think Adai's got to stay. As much as Michigan likes to switch, I think Merez has got to stay on Kaufman-Renn, and Adai's got to stay on Clough. And if you get burned by a couple of those drop coverage threes, then Adai may need to just camp in the paint, and the 4 and 5 will be switching, and Merez is kind of roaming the outside. Whoever is setting those ball screens, and Adai is on the off man.
One of the advantages, though, that you would point to for Michigan is that one of Michigan's few weaknesses so far, I mean, you look to the Wisconsin game, in some of the other, the Northwestern game, is a stretch 4 or 5 who can shoot the three, and Clough and TKR are not going to present that issue for them. So I definitely give Michigan the edge there. And just how big of an edge will it be is probably going to be the story, you know?
Yep. No, definitely. I mean, Nebraska presented issues as well, in that regard. And so, no, I mean, there's the Michigan's margin for error is so great, and the path to victory against them is so narrow, right? But just because we've only seen one path work does not mean that it is the only way that can work. It's just proven to be the one that consistently has Michigan sort of scratching its head or finding ways to adjust or forcing them to sort of play on their heels a little bit. But I mean, this is good. This is going to be a great game. I mean, we could talk about Fletcher Lawyer, or not just Fletcher Lawyer, but Braden Smith until the cows come home. Right? He's number 2 in the league in assist rate. He's the all-time leader in assists in Big Ten play, Big Ten history. It seems like he's really found a rhythm again. I mean, he didn't score a lot against Iowa, but he was, I mean, as you said at the top of this podcast, right? Purdue's offense goes as he goes. And so Michigan's going to need to cut the head off the snake. If Braden Smith has 21 and 12, that's not going to be pretty. If he has 15 and 7, Michigan's in good shape.
Yeah. And he still has good games sometimes when they lose. Like I watched, the Purdue UCLA game was probably one of my favorite Big Ten games I've watched this year. UCLA knocked him off, but it was not Braden Smith's fault. I mean, he was hitting shots down the stretch. He was still, clutch jumpers to get them back in the game. And yet UCLA just found a way to hit a few more shots and pull that game off. So, that'll be, obviously a name to watch for Michigan fans. But quickly, a prediction before we take a break for the podcast. We'll stay live here, but take a quick break spot and then keep going with the, look at Duke.
Oh, brother. I hadn't even done it yet.
I love when I get you on the spot.
So now you got me on the spot. I mean, Ken Palm's got this at what I wrote the note, 78-76 Michigan, right? I think it's like a 55% chance of victory. Mackey is just so difficult to play in, but Michigan has answered the bell every time. I don't know if you could see the wheels turning. They turn slowly sometimes. That's why I don't like people to let people see me think. I mean, I'm gonna take Michigan. I'm going to pick Michigan. I just think that they've got enough size, obviously, to disrupt Kaufman-Renn and slow down Clough as well. Purdue is not shooting it as well as Michigan, but most importantly, their defense has been pretty suspect a number of times, right? Like they gave up 88 to Illinois. I remember they gave up 85 earlier in the year to Penn State. It's been better of late. They've held 4 of their last 5 opponents. Actually, I guess Indiana scored 72 there, but 3 of their last 4 opponents haven't even hit 65 points. But Iowa, Oregon, and Maryland are not exactly a murderer's row of offense, right? And so I just think they have enough answers. And this is just an incredibly huge game. If Michigan drops this game, Purdue's in the hunt for the Big Ten title. And then if Illinois wins one more, they are just one back with a game to play against Michigan in Champaign. So I'm going to pick Michigan to win it. I do think it will be tight, but I'll say Michigan by, I think free throws maybe separate things late. Say Michigan 80, 74.
Yeah, I like the Wolverines too, especially that front court edge. I mean, that's still ever the last few years after Edey left, it's been the weakness for Purdue. And I think that Michigan can overwhelm them between Yaxel getting his offensive rebounds, which he's, put an increased focus on lately. Then you have Mara down there eating up space. And that's not even mentioning Morez Johnson, who's like a top 15 player in the country. Who's going to be a force in the glass too. So I think that front court advantage tilts the game towards Michigan. But real quick, like you said, if Purdue does win, so this is their toughest game remaining. Obviously, Michigan's number one team in the country. That's kind of a no-brainer. But they have Indiana at home, MSU at home, who looks like a mess lately, Ohio State, at Northwestern, and then Wisconsin to end the season. So, I mean, if they beat Michigan, it's not that unrealistic that they could run the table. And Michigan's margin for error in the conference goes down quite a bit with that. Basically, you have to win. You have to win all your last games if Michigan runs the table. You have to win at Illinois, and you have to beat Michigan State. So a lot of basketball to play, but this is a huge one for sure. So with that, we'll take a quick break. Staying live on the YouTube and Facebook and Twitter, wherever you're watching that. But we'll take a quick break for the podcast and be right back. All right. So we'll stay live here. And now we get to, what a treat for us, right? Now we get to talk about Michigan versus Duke. Boozer is just racking up stats. Last I checked, he was averaging like 23 and 12. And he's almost like under discussed because of AJ DeBanza and Darren Peterson and that whole sideshow at Kansas. This guy is one of the most prolific true freshmen scoring and rebounding, just a stats machine, and he's leading Duke to a winning level that they were basically at with last year with Cooper Flagg, who also went number one, and they had Con Knipple last year, and the team looks almost just as good this year. So John Shire has this place rolling like Coach K never left.
Yeah. No, that he does. I think Cameron Boozer has all but locked up the National Player of the Year. His usage rate in crunch time is the highest in the nation. One of the next highest is actually Jeremy Fierce at Michigan State. And that's a point guard who always touches the ball on every possession, right? But when it matters, Duke is getting the ball into Cameron Boozer's hand and letting him finish the deal, right? And almost exclusively, they have. They're coming off a pretty tough loss about a week ago to North Carolina, where they led for the first 39 minutes and 59 seconds. Until 0.4 seconds on the clock when North Carolina hit the game-winning three. But Boozer really is like the guy, right? Outside of that, they've got Isaiah Evans, the sophomore wing, who has doubled his playing time from his freshman season. He scored 40 a game. He's not the best shooter, just under 33 or 35% from three. So respectable. But as someone who they were looking to sort of keep up, like last year, he was shooting at over 41%. Right. And so they thought he was going to be one of those dead eye knockdown guys, and he's good, but not overwhelming. And then Patrick Nongba, their center, who also is big. Along with he and Boozer are going to give this Michigan front line a good run for their money. He's averaging 10 and 6, 6'11", 250. So, he's got the size to handle Morez or really pretty much hang with a die. 250 pounds, even though you're giving up a few inches, figure he should be able to push a die around a bit. But for my money, this matchup comes down to Morez Johnson Jr. on Cameron Boozer. This is a Morez special type of game. I could see, I've seen people floating out the idea of Yaxel getting some time on him, a die messing with using his length to disrupt things. Maybe Michigan throws a couple wrinkles that way. But again, this is a Morez Johnson Jr. special. He is one of the best defenders, in my opinion, certainly in the Big Ten. I think he should get some all defensive team, nationwide consideration. He's been that good. His ability to switch, to block. As Dusty May said, he wakes up in the morning and eats glass. Just his rebounding is superb. So I'm exceedingly excited for this matchup.
Yeah, that's going to be a fun one. And Morez Johnson is a guy who has, kind of started to creep up some draft boards here. You look at a guy who can play the 4 in college, which is not easy because it's cramped in college. To be able to provide that spacing. He also can be a bit of a rim runner. He can, probably play a little bit of 5. I mean, he's listed at 6'9" on Tankathon. Because I was looking at his draft. He's listed at like the 30th draft spot. I mean, he plays bigger than 6'9". I feel like he's more like a 6'10", 6'11", but I mean, maybe he looks taller than Yaxel, don't you think?
Morez? Yeah. No, he does.
Definitely.
Yeah.
He's maybe he plays big.
Much larger.
So this is a spot where like you get to match up against Boozer, who's got a guy who's going to put that shoulder into you, old school style, right through your chest, and score in a bunch of different ways. And it's a great test for Morez, not just for this Michigan basketball team, but for also his draft stock and looking like, hey, you get to play the number 1, number 2, or number 3 overall player, probably number 2 or 3 based off how well Peterson and Debanza have played. But this is a legit NBA guy who would be number 1 overall in almost any other year. And you get to play him in late February when, when everything's rolling for both sides. It's not some fluky early November game, right? Like for Morez, this is almost as valuable as like a March Madness game. So national audience, definitely everyone is going to be watching that matchup. And like you said, Yaxel, he's a great help defender too. And I think Michigan likes to have him off and kind of roaming in addition to Adai and getting in passing lanes and things like that. So yeah, like you said, I think Morez is going to be the matchup to watch.
Yeah. And I'll just shout out a friend of the podcast, Jeremy Wu. He works for ESPN. Now that Jonathan Givony has left, he is really their lead NBA draft expert analyst. And
Nick.
Yes, Draft Nick, exactly. He was college roommates with one of my best friends from Ann Arbor, Alex Baum. Shout out Alex Baum, who now lives in DC, and I will be seeing him in DC. And Jeremy told me, who I ran into in Chicago, that he will be in DC as well. Think we may all go out afterwards and get a beverage. I digress. The point of bringing up Jeremy is I was talking to him in Evanston earlier this week, and in his latest mock, he's got Yaxel at 12. He's got Adai at 32. And he's got Morez at 41, which, I mean, he's the expert, not me. If I'm an NBA team, I'm not picking 40 people before I pick Morez Johnson Jr. That's just me. But that could bode really well for Michigan if that sort of mock and that sort of sentiment holds. I think if Morez is a second round pick in next year's draft, he's going to come back, right? Like you can pay him, you can compensate him, you can sell the vision of building around him again. There's some other people. If you're able to keep Trey McKinney, if you're able to keep LJ, if you're maybe able to keep Cadeau again, Mara would be on the fence. Yaxel is, of course, the only one who is absolutely for sure gone. And then you'd graduate some players like Namari, like Roddy, like Will. But they've shown they can obviously build through the portal with no problem. They just added another top 50 recruit in the class. They've got a McDonald's All-American incoming as well. And so there's going to be more talent in Ann Arbor next year. So like you said, big game for Morez, but in a big finishing stretch for him too, like also Illinois and those sorts of games. So he's been, I mean, he might be, for my money, the most consistent player for Michigan this year. Yaxel is the team MVP, but he kind of went quiet for a little bit. If Morez is quiet, it's because he's in foul trouble. That is the only thing that is really slowing him down. And they don't run sets for him, right? Like they find him on flashes, as Michigan calls it, and then he cleans up offensive rebounds and puts them back. He averages more than a block a game. He just does everything. And so I think this will be his toughest test to date against Duke.
And it feels like, obviously, so much can happen in March, but it feels like you could easily be fast forwarding to the Final Four time period and we're like, oh man, don't forget these teams played just a few weeks ago in late February and X, Y, and Z came out on top. And this is what we learned from the first match. It just feels like that kind of game where it's like something that people will come back to. And I guess the last thing we can kind of discuss about this before the prediction is like the weirdness of this game and the timing. I mean, it's not very often that you take yourself out of conference play this late in the year. Michigan and Michigan State particularly haven't really done it that often. Occasionally you'll see like an SEC ACC crossover, like Kentucky and like North Carolina or something like that. I feel like I remember. But this doesn't happen very often in the Big Ten play. So what do you make of that? Is it going to be something to watch and then having to get right back into Big Ten play if you do win, which is a good problem to have, but like going from that emotional high of beating Duke to getting back in, or, you have a tough loss trying to get back in? Is that something that's going to be a thing, or do you kind of just see it as like, hey, it's just another game on the schedule?
I see it as actually, you were talking about the spin zone with Dusty earlier. I think this sets up for a perfect spin zone. If you win, perfect. You just showed that you could beat the best of the best in any league. That's a lot of confidence translating into March. And if you lose, all right, we learned our lesson when it doesn't matter in the regular season. It didn't hurt us in the Big Ten race. We know if we do what we should do, we should get another shot at them if they're able to make it that far, right? And so that's the Michigan thought process. And so I don't see that being really much of a factor at all. Dusty talked about it a little bit today, and he said he actually spoke with Illinois' Brad Underwood when Michigan was sort of lining this up, and Illinois got
They played Duke. Yeah,
absolutely
that was
annihilated
the game, yeah.
last year. They lost by almost 40 points last year to Duke. They had some injuries. Merez wasn't in that game. It sounds like they had a little bit of a bug going through their team at that time as well. So just for a number of reasons, they just got blitzed, run out of the gym from the moment of tip off. But Dusty asked Underwood, like, even knowing what you know or like what happened, would you play? Like, do you stand by playing that game? And Brad Underwood said he would play that game 100 times out of 100, just in terms of what it was able to, some late season holes that it exposed, the lessons that they learned, and all those sorts of things. And so I think this really is, especially with where this would be a totally different deal if Michigan was where, say, UCLA or Ohio State is, right? Like, you're kind of on the bubble and then a loss, and it's like, oh, man, like, I mean, obviously you're not going to get dinged too much, but you're still missing out on a marquee win. Michigan doesn't need another marquee win in terms of seeding or anything like that, right? Like, they're undefeated in the quad one. They are 12-0 away from Chrysler Center. They have a resume that speaks for itself. So there's just really not a whole heck of a lot to lose with this game at this time. And it's like the Purdue game means, like, I think certainly, if you ask Michigan, all right, we are handing you your 1-1 ticket for this week, safe passage. You will win one of these games, but you will drop one of them. I think everybody to a man would pick the Purdue win and the Duke loss, right? Just because it inches you that much closer to the Big Ten title. So now, if you lose the Purdue game, that puts a lot more pressure on this Duke game, right? Like, you could be looking at an Arizona week where it's like, oh my God, we're the number one team in the nation. We have lost once in 3.5 months, and now we just lost twice in a week. Like, is the sky falling? That sort of thing. But there's also the flip side of that coin. A 2-0 week, and there's not going to be almost a soul left in college basketball who's not picking Michigan to win it all. And so, not that Michigan needs that. They just need their locker room, and they're trying to insulate as best they can. I know we've used that word a number of times, but I'm not concerned about any fall off or any big head or anything like that. Michigan's done a really good job this year of keeping the main thing, and focusing on one game at a time.
Real quick, I just looked back at the Illinois schedule. So coming into, they had beaten Minnesota, and then they beat UCLA, and then they lost to MSU. Remember that game last year where MSU kind of just went in there and shocked them? Well, then after that, they lost at Wisconsin by 20-something points leading into, so they were really stumbling by the time that they went into that Duke game, in the middle of late February there.
And they were banged up.
After that, they beat Iowa by 20 points, then beat Michigan by 20 points, and beat Purdue in the finale of the season. So, to Underwood's point, it really did kind of, as humbling as it was to lose 110-67. I mean, that's a bad game. It's a completely different situation than what Michigan is doing right now, as far as Michigan has 2 wins they're coming in off of, and then Purdue, but then, and just the general direction they're heading. But again, even though it went as badly as it could, it still ended up working out for Illinois in the long run. So, interesting to look back at last year because we have a recent example. So, any final thoughts? I guess I'll offer you a prediction opportunity again. You could probably pass on this one because we're so far away if you really want to, but any game trends, predictions you want to make before we sign off here?
Yeah, I may punt on it because I could see it going. I guess
Iowa football.
Yeah. I mean, no, fine. I'll pick, even though I feel like I need to pick Michigan to lose this game because winning both games seems like such an insanely difficult task. But Michigan is an insanely good team. And so I'm not ready to actually predict them to lose, but it's just at this point, if I'm just like, oh, they're going to beat Purdue, oh, they're going to beat Duke, like just willy nilly. I mean, that's not how it's going to work necessarily. And so
And so much of these games, like in the predictions, have to do with like how the last game ended. Oh, did they crush Purdue? Did they get crushed? Did they win in a nail biter? Like so much of that has to do with how you predict the next game. So that's why I gave you the option for a pass.
Yeah. Is everybody still healthy, right? I mean, you hope that everything keeps on the up and up, but basketball, things happen, right? You just don't know who's going to be suiting up this game. You think you do, but there's no way to know for sure. As far as like keys, I don't know. I mean, I would say again, interior, Duke is the number 4 2-point shooting team in the nation. Michigan is the number 2 2-point defense in the nation. So which side of the ledger does that come out closer to? I think Michigan is giving up on Michigan. Yeah, they hold opponents to 42.8% and Duke is shooting 62%. So right in the middle of that would be about 51, 52%. If it's closer to 55, it's edge Duke. If it's under 50, it's edge Michigan. And so that sort of thing. Is Cameron Boozer still able to be Cameron Boozer with all that Michigan's going to throw at him?
Awesome, man. I appreciate you hopping on live here. I'm glad we did it. Hopefully we'll get more comments and more people engaging in the future. Joanna, I saw your comment. Hopefully you got those audio issues figured out. And appreciate everyone who joined us live. We got a nice little showing here across the 3 platforms. So appreciate that. But don't forget to check out the podcast if you missed the beginning of it or anything like that. Available wherever you find your podcast, Apple, Spotify, all that good stuff. Thank you to our acting sports editor, Ryan Ford. Thank you to Nicole Avery Nichols, our editor-in-chief, and Robin Chan, the editor of the podcast, to listen to us live here today. And I'll have to listen to it a second time when he edits the podcast for the actual feed. So double thanks to him as always. With that, we'll talk to you guys next week after a eventful weekend and week of games here. So we're excited and I can't wait to watch these games.